Welcome back to the Creepy Collective. We have another tale for you tonight. Another dark and spooky tale. This one is titled, My Friend Trained in AI to Draw Caricatures. The results keep me up at night. By Hello, Hello, Help, Hello, on Reddit's No Sleep. The creature had no pupils. Its eyes were milky white, speckled with tiny veins, and yet they seemed to stare at the viewer from the confines of the image. Its skin looked vaguely gray and lifeless. There were red splotches where blood had recently sprayed onto its features. Despite all the differences, I could still tell that this thing used to be me, before the AI had made its alterations. I had held up one hand next to my head when the initial photo was taken, making a peace sign. The creature also held up its hand, but it wasn't making a peace sign at all. It looked more like it was raising its claws, ready to strike. Its nails were long, bony claws that melted into the flesh of the fingers, impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Holy sh**, you look like you're a movie monster from the 70s, Claire pointed at the photo and began giggling. Others joined in, and I couldn't stop myself from laughing along with them. It was a genuine laugh. Yes, the picture was creepy, but not in an unsettling kind of way. It was creepy like a cheesy B-movie poster. Nothing about it was actually concerning or frightening. At this point of the evening, we were playing around with Mark's new app for about half an hour. There were 10 of us. Most already had gotten the chance to try the AI out. Mark had been working on it for a few months. All you had to do was to take a photo, then wait for half a minute to a minute while the AI on his computer upstairs tried to create a caricature of your face. Sometimes the app just spat out nonsense, but when it worked, the results were always unique. The AI had a skill for exaggerating little details none of us even consciously were aware of. Mona had been given extremely pronounced cheeks, which made her look like a chipmunk. Thomas's chin had been elongated until it nearly broke past the lower bottom of the screen. And for Andrew, the machine had taken the little liver spot above his right brow, then duplicated it until his whole face had been covered in brown dots. In my case, the machine decided to turn me into some sort of ghoulish creature. There, you see? Mark said and pointed at the photo. The AI really notices all kinds of stuff we'd normally miss. In your case, it focused on your fingernails. They look way longer with the way you angle your hand in the photo. It's why it mashed you together with the image of some clawed monster. Here. He leaned forward until his fingers touched the screen. With a few swipes, he flipped back and forth from the original to the altered image, ecstatic about how well his work was received. What's the thing next to my ear supposed to be, though? I said. In the altered picture, something hovered on the right side of my face, inching towards my ear. It looked like a pale tendril with the texture of sickly skin. Mark took the phone from my hand and squinted at the photo. Don't know. The program still has a few quirks. I think this used to be your hair. He frowned for a moment, then nodded to himself. Yeah, probably your hair. The AI still struggles with interpreting long hair like yours. Anyway, who wants to go next? Oh, me! Claire jumped from her seat at the couch next to me, raising her hand into the air. It was nice seeing her getting excited about this. I had been worried she wasn't enjoying herself. The rest of us already knew each other from high school, but Claire was a new friend. I met her at college. I had brought her along to introduce herself to the gang. She had wanted to cancel at first since she had been slightly unwell the last few days, but I managed to convince her to come along for at least a little bit. Even now, she was wearing her jacket, as if ready to leave at any moment. The carefree way she laughed along with the others told me that everything was going to be fine, though. All right, cheese! Mark pointed the phone in her direction. Claire stood up, stuck out her tongue, and struck a pose. We all waited as the computer began to process the new photo. The altered image formed on the screen. This time, nobody was laughing. The AI hadn't made any changes to Claire herself. It had erased her silly expression, but left her otherwise. just as she was in real life. In the photo, she stood with her head drooped down, eyes glancing to the side, her brows furrowed, her arms wrapped around herself as if fending off a chill. Her whole posture seemed tense and vaguely frightened, and while she still looked the same, the room she was standing in was a completely different one. The brightly lit living room was gone. Instead, Claire stood in some dim area in front of a decaying wall. There was an open doorway right behind her. The room beyond was pitch black. There were more of the thin, pale tendrils, like the one that had shown up in my photo, emerging from the darkness. Some blindly slithered through the air, but most of them was hovering around Claire herself. Weird, Mark said. Let's try that again. Maybe try taking off your scarf. Could be that the AI struggles because I can't make out your neck. Why are you wearing that anyway? Do you have a cold? Don't know, Claire shrugged. A hint of uncertainty had crept into her voice. It's a bit chilly in here, right? There's this draft, right? She gestured towards her back, looking back and forth between us. Her fingers nervously clutched around at her jacket. The moment only lasted a split second. With a shake of her head, she forced the carefree smile to return to her face. Whatever. Let's try again. She ripped the scarf off her neck and tossed it onto the backrest of the couch. Mark took another picture. We waited. The image formed. Claire took in a sharp breath. The computer had done the exact same thing for a second time. Once more it had drawn Claire standing in that dim room, looking frightened and small. The ominous door was right behind her. The darkness behind its threshold encompassed her huddled figure. The strange tendrils had grown even more numerous. All of them had turned towards her. Some were so close that they nearly touched the bared parts of her skin. It's a prank, right? You're pranking me? By now, Claire's smile was completely stiff and unnatural. There's some secret button you can press to make the photos come out like this, right? No. I swear I didn't do anything. It's the AI. Mark raised his hands in a defensive gesture. I'm still working on it. Sometimes it has weird quirks like this. There's just some detail about you that it picks up. Something it interprets this image of an open door. No idea what might have triggered that. Here, try it out for yourself. Maybe you can get it to work properly. He handed his phone over. Claire took it, retreated off to the side, and snapped a selfie. So, anyway, Mark said while Claire was still waiting for the results, what are you guys thinking so far? I was wondering whether I should go public with this app. This might get really popular. I could even make some money. I'd make the base model free, but people could pay for special options or for faster processing time or something like that. He tried his hardest to steer the conversation into this new direction, but it was hard to really focus on what he was saying. We all kept glancing over at Claire, who was still taking pictures of herself, growing more and more frantic with each result. She began flinching to the side and spinning around as if expecting something or someone to be standing right behind her. She had just taken another photo when she let out a startled shriek and jumped forward, ducked down, and covered her head with one hand. Her other hand flailed through the air, striking at some invisible target. By now, all eyes were on her. Something just touched me. Something touched me. Something... She let out another scream and began to wildly strike around her. It touched me! It touched me! Stop touching me! Claire, stop! Nobody is touching you! Claire! We had all hurried towards her, forming a loose circle. None of us could really get any closer without the risk of getting hit. Okay, that's enough! Mark shouldered his way past us. Give me back my phone. You're going to break it. Gimme! He jumped towards Claire and managed to duck beneath a wide swing of her arm. He had misjudged the erratic motion of her body, though. The two of them collided in the middle of the room. Mark went down with a curse, while Claire stumbled to the side and somehow was able to keep her balance. She glanced around with wide, unfocused eyes, then darted towards the closest door and out of the room. The phone had dropped from her hand during the collision. It landed right in front of my feet. For a second, I got a glance at the very last image the AI had created. It looked similar to all the previous ones. It was Claire with the door right behind her. The door had inched closer. There was something strangely organic about it, the way the AI had drawn it. Its outlines were bending outwards, which made it look like a widening maw about to swallow its prey. Half of Claire's body was already submerged in the darkness. Her hands were clinging to the wooden frame, desperately holding on, while the thin white tendrils had wrapped themselves around her. They were pulling her backwards. Tears were in her eyes. I didn't get to take in any more of the details because just at that moment, the real-life version of Claire let out another scream. This one wasn't just a startled shriek like before. It was a mindless, guttural roar, loud and painful. I could hear the coarse rasping of her vocal cords. The worst thing about it was how it just suddenly cut off. I left the phone on the floor and rushed after her into the hallway. She wasn't there. I pulled open the door to the small downstairs bathroom, expecting to find her curled up in the middle of the floor. The room was empty. I hadn't heard her use the front door, but it was the only other exit, so I went and looked out. She was neither in the driveway nor anywhere on the street. As I stood there staring out into the night, a sudden gust of cold air hit me, not coming from outside, but from somewhere right behind me. The icy draft was intense and unnatural. It seemed to phase straight through my clothes, licking over my bare skin. I held my breath and froze. Is she okay? The question startled me back into motion. I slowly turned around and found one of the others peering at me from the living room. "What?" I said. "Your friend. Is she okay?" Yes? No? I don't know. I think she left, I answered as I stepped away from the front door. The was wrong with her? Psycho. Mark had retrieved his phone and was turning it back and forth in his hands, squinting his eyes as he looked for damages. I swear, if she broke something. He aimed the camera at me and snapped a picture. Well, can you blame her? With that creepy shit your app kept doing? What the was up with that? I've already told you that's not my fault. The AI just messes up sometimes and I have no idea why. It happens, okay? There was just some detail about your freak friend that kept triggering something, and... He suddenly fell silent, staring at the screen of his phone where the computer must have just sent the result of the last photo he had taken. A slight tremble went through his lips. What? What is it? I said and took a step closer. He startled away from me, then forced himself to stand still, squaring his shoulders in a confrontational way. He pushed the phone into his pocket. It's nothing, it's just a bug. Something is broken. He began to turn away. Another cold rush of air hit me from behind and I took another panic step towards him. No, seriously, what is it? Show me the picture, I want to see. I said it's nothing, Mark shouted. He took a deep breath, then continued at a normal volume. It's just broken, all right? I don't have time to show you. I have to go upstairs to check on my computer. It's probably overheating or something. If you're really so worried about all of this, then how about you take care of your weirdo friend instead of bugging me? With that, he turned completely around and stomped away. Part of me wanted to follow him upstairs to demand to see the picture. A more rational part had to concede that he was right. It was more important to make sure Claire was okay. I could still demand to see that photo tomorrow if I still thought it really mattered by then. So I left. Claire's phone couldn't be reached. I made my way to her apartment, but her flatmate said she had never returned home. She didn't turn up for her part-time job the day after as well. And when Monday came around, Claire was not in any of her classes either. Nobody has seen her. Nobody has heard of her. None of us who were there that night can explain what has happened. Most of them speculate that Claire might have had some sort of mental illness, which was triggered by the series of unfortunate images the AI had coincidentally created. Some even speculate that the whole event had just been faked by Mark, who wanted to create some sort of viral story to accompany the release of his new app. According to them, Claire had been in on the whole plan and is now just laying low, waiting for us to spread the word of how she disappeared after the AI had created a bunch of ominous images. The whole theory doesn't make any sense to me, though. Mark and Claire didn't know each other before that night. How could they have conspired to do any of this? And if Mark really wanted us to spread the story on social media, wouldn't he be eager to send us the pictures Claire took that night so we could share them with the internet? Instead, he has gone completely silent, not responding to any emails or calls, not even answering his doorbell. I really wish I could just see that last picture he had taken of me back then. Maybe I'm just going crazy. Maybe I'm just getting way too wrapped up in this whole situation. But ever since that night, I keep feeling this cold blast of air drifting against my back, as if I'm standing in front of an open doorway. And every now and then, I can feel a slithering touch, stroking faintly against the exposed skin of my neck.